episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash. And today we are talking about another position group as we go over our top 10 running backs in the NFL right now. Our last episode was top 10 wide receivers. The episode before that was top 10 quarterbacks. If you missed both of those, of course, go check them out. But before we get into that, we have to talk about some pretty big news.
What Matt had to eat yesterday? Oh. I thought we were going to ask how our day was.
No.
Going to get right into it?
I mean, we can.
We can.
Oh, did you have something you wanted to share, Theo?
No, I was just in shock that we were going right into the episode without the opportunity for me to think about something to say and try to come up with something and reach for a couple
I mean,
seconds.
I figure it's early in the morning, so the day hasn't really happened yet. But I guess as far as talking about other things, Theo, you watched Shedeur Sanders on live yesterday. How was that?
True, I missed you guys on the Shedeur Sanders live. It was horrible. I mean, it was probably the worst offense that we've watched on one of those scouting live streams. I don't want to see Shedeur throw any more passes from the college hash to the far sideline to throw like a hitch that goes 5 yards downfield. It travels like 50 yards in the air, and he's getting killed because his left tackle is the worst player I've ever seen in my life. So the offense is dysfunctional, but Shedeur is also like not that good of an athlete is the thing. Like, people might think he is because he's Dion's kid, but I mean, maybe he was battling with injury. That's kind of what the comment section was saying. But it's like, man, you're not really making anybody miss or outrunning anybody, and his arm looks weak and his footwork is all scared, which is valid because like the offense sucks. But man, there's a lot that went wrong.
Tough. Matt, what did you have to eat yesterday? Since Theo's so curious.
I can't say I remember.
What?
This is podcasting, Matt.
You don't know what you have in your fridge? Like,
the fans love you. They want to know.
I don't think they care. I think they clicked on the video they saw. We're going to talk about Goff and running backs. And right now they're getting mad. They're grabbing their phone so hard they're going to shatter it. And I have to agree. I have to say, yes.
Well, let's put you and the listeners out of their misery and talk about Jared Goff getting $53 million a year over 4 years. Makes him the second highest paid player in the league per year, but he's not quite that high in guarantees. I think he's 7th. So what are we feeling here? I always kind of have the same take with these quarterbacks, which is like, I understand. And I'm trying to determine if it's woke or fake woke to say these guys should just let it run its course.
Is fake woke to say that they should not have signed Jared Goff? I think saying they should have traded up for Anthony Richardson, while it's a fair take, I do understand at this point is a little bit ridiculous. Nobody actually, I'll put it like this. I think about this tweet. You remember that tweet a while ago that was like, you don't want to be out here? You don't want to be out here.
That whole thread.
You don't want to be out here in the quarterback market. There is absolutely no way we watched this offseason go down the way that it did. And we said, yeah, the Lions should just like see what can happen in free agency, see what can happen in a weaker draft class. Dude, it could be a point blank disaster. I don't think letting Goff walk was an option for him realistically.
Letting Goff walk this year wasn't an option. Them signing Goff is more of a failure of last offseason. They had an opportunity to trade up for Richardson. They had an opportunity to trade for Lamar Jackson. Neither of those things went down, and I think those mistakes are now why they're having to pay Goff what they did. But had they, taken the chance on making moves last year,
I question the availability of Lamar Jackson.
Maybe
how that would have gone down and how much you actually had to give up. And as far as Anthony Richardson would have gone, they would not have been as good as they were this year. Point blank. No question about it. They would have been worse unquestionably this year. And this is their best season they've had in 60 years. So they should have thrown that away for Anthony Richardson.
How much worse
I just can't actually get behind that. And if we are, then we have to go full, it's ring or nothing. And any other sort of success is totally worthless. And I think for a team that's been as bad as the Lions for as long as they have, I just can't agree. On top of that, unless it's changed in the last 24 hours, we don't know exactly how that contract is structured. So we don't know when all of a sudden like that salary starts to raise and raise and raise, and it starts to be like too much for the Lions to bear. What it looks like to me, first off, I saw people say, window closed, it's over. Doesn't even make any sense. Extension, not a new contract. So this year he's being paid a smaller percentage of the salary cap than he was last year.
Yes.
The year after, the first year it starts, we don't even know how much it is. And on top of that, we're assuming that the Lions never get aggressive and never restructure their contracts. Based off how things look right now, with the big extensions they've been signing for everybody, I'm guessing they're going to Saints this and go balls to the wall and do everything they can to push money into the future. Now, is it going to end in a championship? I don't know. And I think a lot of people are looking at this like, yeah, well, they won't win a Super Bowl. And it's like, okay, well, if you play the field against one team that hasn't won a Super Bowl before, you're probably going to end up being right. But the idea of punting on this team to go try to find another quarterback, or they should have gone Richardson and never had this team. Keep in mind, they hadn't had some like major level of success to go and spend all those assets to move up to get Richardson to then sit a guy. They hadn't even been to the playoffs. Well, they did make the playoffs. They didn't win a game. What did they do before this year?
Before this year, they sent the Packers home week 18, but they didn't make the playoffs because the Seahawks won that late game and the Seahawks won instead.
Right. So it's like we're asking a team that's never made the playoffs to think about its Super Bowl, hasn't
never made the playoffs.
Well, never made the playoffs.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Hasn't won a playoff game since 1990 to be like, sorry, dude, Goff isn't a high enough ceiling play. They were like a play away from making the Super Bowl, by the way. I don't know if it's going to end in a ring. I'd say that anytime any team pays any quarterback, odds are they won't win a ring. But honestly, we've seen in the last 4 years or so, teams paying their QBs more and more and more. It's become more common. The idea of you have to have a guy on a rookie deal or you have to have a guy on a cheap deal was true for a while. It's starting to be not so much anymore. I'll admit, usually for quarterbacks who are better than Goff. But again, I just don't think that going out here and not not having a QB and we're going to go get Shedeur Sanders. Come on.
But the thing is, that's not the situation the Lions are working with. It if you don't pay Goff, it doesn't mean he just disappears this season. He'd be able to play this out, and then you could franchise tag him. And that's the situation where I think it could be ideal. You can have your window for the next 2 years, and you could potentially have 214 million or whatever it is to spend on other things if you let it play out and then use the franchise tag options, because right now you're paying Jared Goff $10 million more than Josh Allen is getting, and it's that's
there was a huge jump in the salary this year, but I promise you, if I'm Jared Goff, I'm telling them screw it, fuck you, no way, nope, pay me, give me a huge contract or I'm not playing. That's what I would do. And what if
I'd
you were the Lions?
We drafted Hendon Hooker for a reason, buddy.
That's some of the comments I get. Well, they drafted Hendon Hooker. Why would they do this? It's dude, I just think the Hendon Hooker pick was bad.
Yeah, why did they do that? I mean,
I don't know.
Because they wanted to take a shot on a guy, and hopefully, if they liked what they saw, maybe they could have chosen, hey, we're gonna roll with the rookie. I just don't think that Hendon Hooker is good enough to do that. And your odds with pretty much anybody outside of round one is very, very low. I mean, I respect the attempt. It's very easy to say, obviously that wasn't going to work. But I get what they were going for.
Kind of. That was almost a mini Penix pick, because now he's 25.
Yeah.
I guess it's just a backup.
Not as bad as the Penix pick, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to kill Brad Holmes for it because what you're saying is true. You don't want to be out here. Their window is extended with Goff now. I don't think it's any kind of disaster, but I do just don't value Jared Goff that highly. We didn't really talk about him in our top 10 quarterbacks list, and now he's paid at a QB2 level. And as risky as it is to not get a quarterback, or to not have a quarterback that is proven like Goff, it's also risky to be paying QB 13, QB2 money, and the success rate of that happening is pretty low. Where like people look back at that and say like, oh man, Goff isn't massively overpaid, but we haven't seen the structure of it. Maybe it really is fine by the last 2 years of the deal, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's not the end of the world by any means, but I just think that you could have had Goff way cheaper for 2 years. Instead, you're committing to him for the next 4, and I'm just not quite sure Goff, who ranked, he was peaking probably at what, quarterback 5, 6 this year, maybe less than that, QB 7. Like this year alone, Jackson, Stroud, Allen, Purdy, Prescott, like statistically, probably all above them. So you're paying for maybe at its peak QB 6 or 7 pay, which I guess the guarantees kind of match. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but I want these teams to be brave. I just want to see the chaos. Even if it's Dak, let Dak hit free agency, man.
No. That is so unfair. Here's what's going to happen. Dak, also a very good quarterback, better than Goff. But when the day comes and he gets his big contract, I'm going to sit there and cross my arms and say, well, that team's not going to win a Super Bowl now. You got to be a little bit braver than that, because he's going to get like $60 million. And it's going to be the same logic as to why paying Goff isn't going to work. And it's going to be true as well. Almost certainly if Dak takes a $60 million contract, whatever team won't win a Super Bowl. The odds are stacked against it, especially if it's the Cowboys. And we try to sit here and say, well, the Cowboys weren't wrong for paying Dak, for giving him their big contract, but they've been kind of locked down with how much money they've been giving out themselves. It's just kind of an inevitable thing to happen at some point. I think the Lions, their odds are stacked against them for winning a Super Bowl because they don't have one of like the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And that makes it very, very tough, especially when you're paying somebody. But if you told me that the first year of that Goff contract was really light, or they got aggressive with restructures and they added on to the team they have this year, even next offseason, and just said, we know at some point it's going to hit the fan, but we're trying to push that as far into the future and extend our window as hard as we can, I could see it happening. I could see it getting done for them. And honestly, I would really like them if they had added another receiver. I'd be incredibly interested with what they could do in the NFC. But I still think they're not a fringe contender, but not the favorite in the NFC.
I think they could definitely win one with Goff next year. Really, I think they're going to be heavy contenders. I think San Francisco, it's no guarantee they go back-to-back winning the NFC. And I think the Lions are the next team up, to be completely honest with you, after they address their secondary and their offensive line is so good. And Goff is going to play at probably a high level and all that. It's just all that can happen. And you don't give Goff this extension. Again, you can just drag it out a little bit more. And I think that's what's being underutilized in these quarterback situations, is the idea of like, you don't have to do anything, man. You can just let it run its course and spam the franchise tag. The Cowboys did it with Dak, and eventually Dak kind of took his game to another level and they gave him a huge extension, and maybe they should have just paid him before, but I don't think Goff is going to take his game to another level like that in the next 4 years. I think that we're kind of witnessing the peak of it right now as he kind of caps out at probably 6 or 7. But he's just not that mobile. He's just not that much of a creator. It's just, to me, very game managery. He's fine. He's one of the best at it right now, and he's playing with a lot of confidence in that system, and is a huge reason why it works right now. But I just think that this huge extension could have been played a little differently, but maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe every GM would tell me that that's not possible, but it happened with Cousins, I guess, which didn't really work out for Washington, but it also didn't work out for Minnesota. So I guess there's really just no way to do a good job.
Yeah, I mean, I really question whether or not he would have played this year if you didn't pay him. Like, would Goff have held out? Because that he can instantly end your season if he wants to. If you don't pay him and he's like, I want a big contract, he can instantly end your season. And if you even get like 3 weeks into the year and you don't have your quarterback, it could be a disaster and tank the whole thing. I think it's very easy to pay him.
What's the risk reward there? Like, you could pay him what? Like, how much if he held out and you started Hooker and you realized, oh man, this is not going well, and you go crawling back to Goff and say, okay, bro, we'll do we'll bite on your negotiations. That's like $2 million more. He'd reset the quarterback market and
so you would give Hendon Hooker a chance.
And then go crawling back to Goff if it didn't work.
I see every like anti-Goff stuff is just, I feel like it's all kind of based in either like sort of like, this is what I would do in Madden, or a hypothetical that like doesn't
I'm hypothetical,
exist.
Man. That's my cup of tea.
It's like, well, it would be better if they had like Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert. That would be better. I would pay them, but I wouldn't pay Goff. And it's like, well, I would just only have him for 1 or 2 more years. And it's like, right. But Goff has a lot of leverage. Like, yeah, him getting 4 years at this level is more than he's worth, but you don't have another choice. That's the leverage that Goff has. This happens in the NBA all the time. You'll see an older player get like this huge extension that's way longer than they're going to be good. And it's like, well, why does the team think they're going to be good that longer? That's the right length of contract. They don't think it's the right length of contract, but the player has leverage. And I think that's the same case here.
Yeah, he does have leverage. I just
you could not.
There is another choice.
You could not ride with Hendon Hooker. You could not ride. No, because I do agree with Matt here. You could not ride with Hendon Hooker into week 1 and then crawl back to Goff in week 3.
Why not?
Because Goff wouldn't have been practicing. You could have Hendon Hooker practice with the day 1 for 3 months and then just be like, okay, never mind, everyone. Here's Goff again. It would just be insane.
I mean, if Goff is really like that.
If Goff, oh my. That would be a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, he knows the offense. It's Ben Johnson again. He's getting working with his personal QB trainer. He can come in. Well, this is the assumption that he even holds out at all. But anyway, I don't even, like I said, I'm not going to kill Brad Holmes for it.
Yeah.
But I do think that the success rate of paying like QB 13, QB 2 money is low. And I think it is like I want to imagine a world where there is like some medium where like not every quarterback just resets the market all the time, but I don't know. It's whatever. He didn't reset the market either. I guess Burrow is still number 1.
I have a theory. I think that part of the reason, not entirely, because I agree with you, like overpaying a guy is bad. And it makes it harder to build the rest of the team. I don't think this used to happen as much. I think now more than ever, we see like more and more quarterbacks are like reset the market level. Granted, you have to take into account that Goff still didn't reset the market, even in a year when the salary cap jumped $30 million.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not really as close to it as maybe it would have seemed. But I think more and more guys are paying QBs big money, and like more dudes are getting paid the super large salaries. Maybe that's totally made up, but that's just how it feels to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know, but it's fine. It's a fine extension. It's really not going to kill the Lions this year or anything like that. So I don't know.
I mean, if anything, it'll probably help them this year because, like Matt said, as an extension, it'll make the cap.
It won't even matter this year, I guess, is really like year. This extension. Yeah. Their roster's already set. But anyway, there's another big extension that dropped. Antoine Winfield Jr. is the highest paid defensive back in the league. What was the stat I saw? Like, this is the first time a safety has hit that in like 20 years.
That's crazy.
What do you guys think about paying a safety? Let's see what he got. I think it was 84 million over 4 years, so
It's a
21
pretty
per.
hefty sum. All I know is that Kyle Hamilton will break it here in a few years.
Yeah, he will.
I wonder, is there any cornerbacks who got massive extensions this offseason? I'm talking like top of the line guys, like top five.
No.
I would question whether or not that is somewhat a product of the salary spike, which I think people have forgotten about. I mean, it spiked 30 million, like well over 10%, which is not typical at all. I mean, it usually goes up, but not this much. I don't know. I don't think that Tampa is a team that has like the craziest, highest ceiling in the world. But I get paying their guys and being competitive, and they were a play away from the NFC Championship game, and I kind of feel like they've built off that. So I'm not a huge enemy of it.
I like it a lot, actually. I think, like you said, Matt, there just hasn't been a lot of corners right now that have reset the market. Like Sauce and Surtain are defensive backs that I would easily take over Antoine Winfield Jr., but they haven't signed their deals yet. It's not like Winfield's getting paid like way more than their extension. They're still on their rookie contracts. So once those drop, it's going to knock Winfield down the defensive back rankings in terms of payment. And I think that he's really, really good. I think Antoine Winfield Jr. is the ideal fireman at the back of the defense. Like he sees things just kind of a step before they happen and is just in the right place at the right time all the time. Good in coverage, good tackler, good blitzer, just very disruptive player. And when the contract dropped, I watched their playoff game versus the Lions, and they really left him alone the entire game. Didn't really challenge him at all. Jahmyr Gibbs did juke him in the open field pretty badly, but we'll talk about Jahmyr Gibbs at this episode and how that might be kind of understandable and could happen to any safety, I guess. Outside of that, though, like I thought he was pretty much locked down, and really that whole Bucs defense was pretty impressive, I thought, in that game outside of the pass rush. But you've got Izzian, you've got Winfield, you've got Levante David, who's still good somehow. Jamel Dean, like you've got some underrated coverage pieces, and because it's the Bucs, I feel like people don't talk about it very much. But man, I think Winfield is coming off a season where he should have been at least a Pro Bowler. Did he make all Pro and not Pro Bowl? You're muted, Matt, but
I don't remember the All Pro teams to be 1,000%.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. But I don't know. I mean, it's a good player. Just because he's a safety doesn't mean
you're
he's
right,
worthless.
Theo. He was first team All Pro, but he didn't make a Pro Bowl.
Right. He's just
I would
underrated.
have let my first team All Pro player walk.
I'm always a big fan of teams kind of jumping ahead of the curve a little bit and paying their guy early. Like AJ Brown just got paid, but Jamar Chase hasn't, right? And so you're still waiting on, like, you don't want to be the last guy to pay their top end player at a position, especially if they're not like the top guy.
Yeah. I think of all the safeties across the league, I'd take Hamilton above Winfield Jr., but that's about it at this point, with the injuries that Minka has kind of suffered recently, and Derwin as well. I think that, yeah, man, you're paying top of the line defensive back money. Bates is pretty good. I think I'd take Winfield above Bates, but Bates isn't a bad shout out. I think that it's valid, and I think really I would take Winfield above a lot of corners as well, outside of Surtain and Sauce. So the fact that, like, who's corner 3 right now, I guess we'll debate it in a future episode.
You're taking Winfield over Denzel Ward and Grant Delpit? Be so for real.
Ward is pretty damn good. But yeah, I think it's fine money for Winfield. I don't think the positional value of safety versus corner versus any other position is as much of a debate as I'm willing to get into these days after Roquan Smith and Kyle Hamilton and Brian Branch came in and were great players at positions that people didn't respect before. So yeah, I like the Winfield extension.
All right. Pro Winfield, anti-Goff. Who would have thought? But let's talk about these running backs. We're 25 minutes in. I feel like it's probably about that time. Our top 10 running backs in the NFL right now. We're going to structure this the same way we have been. Each of us sent in a list, and it's ranked choice voting, board account style. We're going to go 1 to 10, starting with our consensus number 1 running back in the NFL.
Josh Jacobs?
Jerome Ford?
Christian McCaffrey?
No, it's Christian McCaffrey. I can't say I'm surprised. He was outstanding this year.
He was unbelievable, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he probably had a good case for MVP at points. I mean, he does everything. He can really do everything for the 49ers. Like that role that Shanahan wanted Debo to be in, where he did everything, that's now McCaffrey's role. And McCaffrey is happy to play it, unlike Debo.
Yeah, McCaffrey was pretty much perfect last year, I'd say. I mean, he's the best zone runner in the league. His vision is unreal. Pressing gaps, making people commit, and then falling back. He does it all the time. And then the tenacity that he ran with and the amount of tackles that he broke, and he was running as angry as I've ever seen him this year. And when you combine the vision with that kind of tackle breaking ability with what he does out of the backfield, I mean, he's the kind of weapon that made that whole thing go really and took it to a higher level. Truly, I didn't think it would happen with him, with how much he had been banged up. Like, he hadn't broken that many big runs in a couple of years. I was like, I don't know if he's explosive enough at this point. I don't know if he's, worth everything that the 49ers gave up. But man, he shut me up in a big way last season, because he was as good as I've seen a running back play ever. He had 83 first downs on the ground in 2023. In 2019, that year where he had 1,000, he had 57 first downs on the ground.
Jeez, man.
I guess he did have 58 receiving that year, which is crazy. But yeah, he was ridiculous.
He was on a team where it was a little bit harder to get
True.
first downs, I'm afraid. I mean, I can't disagree with anything you just said. He was unbelievable. I mean, I'm assuming it was unanimous and consensus, and I don't think there's a single person who would have anybody else here.
Well,
what? Did you have
Did you
someone
put
else?
Nick Chubb?
I did put Nick Chubb at number 1.
Bro, we're going to kill you, bro.
I didn't. Is Chubb even going to be like 100% back this year? I
don't care.
I don't think I even. Man.
Chubb is has Chubb ever had a season this good?
Chubb is good. Chubb is the best until he proves otherwise to me.
He's the best until he tears his ACL at whatever age he is. And McCaffrey has that type of season, I think. Chubb is an unknown. I mean, I kind of ignored him, honestly, because
I did the same. Yeah, it sucks, dude. But he's like 28, coming off like a brutal, like more than an ACL tear, like a brutal knee injury. And
he was averaging 6.1 yards per carry.
Look, he was ridiculous, but it's like he's like, for me, like an honorable mention. Like, we'll see when you get back, but as it is right now, like the jury on how good Chubb is going to be coming back is just completely out.
Yeah, if anyone can do it, it's him. But I mean, the dude has only played. He's only played 17 games once in his whole career at this point.
How many of those seasons?
I'm pretty sure that
I guess he played
that was
16
the
in
first
2019
season when they instilled the 17 game season. Listen, he's done it before. He's proven he can come back from a terrible injury before. I think he can do it again. I think he's going to come back and average 6 yards a carry again. Like,
he's seriously such a freak that it's not off the table. I did kind of ignore him because of the injuries, but maybe
he got hurt like week 2 of last year. I've seen videos of him like running, and it looks like he's back to full speed, moving at least. So I think he can get back in time for week 1. There's still a few months until the season starts. So
Yeah, I think he's so good. He's so ridiculous that if anyone can do it, it's him. But for our intents and purposes, I think CMC clearly has the RB1 crown this season. Although
this
I
is
would
partly
have
my
given it to
bias sneaking through.
Oh, is it? Is it partly your Browns bias? I mean, I agree. We've done nothing but sing Nick Chubb's praises since this podcast started. So I think anybody who's listened before knows this isn't some vendetta against him. However, like, dude, 29 coming off an injury like that, or 28, or however old he's going to be next year, is like the track record is not great. So I think it's fair
like
to have
Adrian
your doubts
Peterson,
even with the player
and that's
that
it.
good. Well, even Adrian Peterson didn't have an injury that bad, did he? I mean, he tore his ACL, and he was younger,
Then he won
wasn't
MVP.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, but
26, I believe.
he was younger and didn't have this.
He's also better than
wait.
Nick Chubb somehow,
Take
some
that
way.
back.
No. Nope. I'm not taking that one back. 2,097 yards in my backyard when I was 12 years old. I know what I saw. So yeah, I think that one's a little crazy, but we'll move on.
You'll let it slide.
Well, what am I gonna do? Fight you, dude? Like jump through the screen and strangle you like Homer does Bart Simpson? Like I can't do it. So at this point, I just say,
If you were a real
number
man,
two?
you would. But
We're already killing you because of the events of last podcast. Eventually, so
what happened in the events of last podcast?
the revolution. You were deemed bourgeois.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's true.
That's right.
I forgot about that.
Well, your life is already on the chopping block because you've betted so many
True.
times.
I'm on
so.
borrowed time, so I might as well
Jameson
do it.
Williams was not wide receiver 1. I think that's what did you in.
Really, because the Lions traded up so far, he essentially did get the most draft capital given up for him. So at the end of the
this while
day,
I put my head in the
who is
guillotine.
really right?
No, but look at the
terms of
trade
draft
chart. Come
capital?
on.
Look at the draft capital given up.
Look
He's wide
at the
receiver
asset
1.
calculator. No.
Okay, so just because a wide receiver goes at 9 means that they're wide receiver 1 versus someone who goes at 12, but a second round pick is given up. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever.
So true.
Anyway, who
If
is
the
number
Lions
2?
if the Lions were willing to trade up ahead of Atlanta, they should have. But our consensus number 2 RB is Saquon Barkley.
Ooh.
I think that's who I had. Honestly, dude, I was like, okay, CMC 1, and here's my other like 11 guys, and then the order of them is just brutal. I think Saquon, how much attention he draws, deserves a lot of credit. Statistically, he was ass last year in terms of just efficiency. But it's funny. It's like whenever you're looking at a certain guy, it's like, okay, well, how did everybody else on the team do? Just like numbers wise, real quick. And it's like, dude, everybody else was averaging like 2.5 yards a carry, man. It was nasty shit.
Yeah.
Saquon.
Who's their running back 1 this year? This is a question I was
Singletary,
thinking
I
about.
think.
Is it Singletary or is it like I thought it was Matt Breida?
I mean, that's probably who you're talking about, Matt, is in terms of who is averaging like 2 yards an attempt behind that Giants offensive line last year. He'll have a shot at it. I'm sure it'll be by committee, but like you said, Matt, it's a great point. The rest of the Giants running backs, and I challenge anyone to turn on the film and tell me like what should have Saquon done on this run.
Right.
Like
he doesn't have like the rookie year athleticism that he once did because of the injuries. But it's not like he's like totally sapped or anything. And I think it really makes you appreciate like how good of a running back Saquon is. Like, it's not just that he was quicker and stronger than everybody. It's that he is incredibly solid and reading things out, and he's a good blocker, and he's a great receiving threat. So he's just a really solid all-around back. Going from the Giants to the Eagles offensive line is going to be huge for him. I think he's going to have a really big year. I'd really think about him in fantasy too.
With Jalen Hurts to take a lot of pressure off as well. I think it's gonna be
with
a
another guy there as a
nasty
threat in the
rushing
run game. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be night and day.
I think about the Giants offense is kind of like the inverse of the Dolphins, where you're like, well, Saquon wasn't super efficient, but who else was? You look at the Dolphin, it's like everyone was super efficient.
Yeah, everything kind of aligns, right? When you look at the Dolphins, like Mostert and A-Chain are at the top, and when you look at Gibbs and Montgomery, they're kind of at the top, right, in the same spot.
Yeah.
And it's just not the case with Saquon and his teammates. And I think that Saquon's vision has gotten unbelievably good, to be completely honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of the gaps that he's able to anticipate opening, like are straight up just not there. And he runs towards a spot, and then the C's part just as he hits it at the perfect time, and it ends up being a 5-yard gain, right? That's all it is. But he's the one who had to conjure it up out of nowhere, and he is the one who had to make people miss in a phone booth and have elite footwork just for the smallest of gains. And a lot of the times, like, there's a guy just in the backfield as soon as he takes the handoff and he gets killed. It's that bad. And yeah, it looks bad on the stat sheet. It looks horrible on the stat sheet, and it has, honestly, for several years. So I think people discount him. But man, I think he's going to open a lot of eyes on the Eagles. I think that he's been getting better post injury. Like, he tore his Achilles or ACL. What was it? His rookie year. I thought when he maybe first came back from that is when he struggled the most. But even though his numbers haven't gotten better, I think he has actually gotten better over these past couple of years. But obviously everything has really deteriorated around him. But he was a huge reason why the Giants were in the playoffs last year. I remember on this podcast talking about him in when we were ranking MVPs, right, and offensive players of the year, like how bad everything was, and then how good he was at certain points in that year.
He had like 380 touches that year or something. I mean, it was the offense.
Mm-hmm.
It was nasty work.
And then Jones completely fell off and then got hurt, and then this year just nothing to be done.
Yeah.
So he's nice. I'm glad that he's number 2, because I think that he's been grinding, and not a lot of people give him the respect he deserves, and that's about as much respect as you can possibly give him, because I'm not putting him above McCaffrey.
Yeah. But our consensus number 3, I'm honestly a little bit surprised, but I don't hate it at all. Breece Hall.
Yeah.
Kind of same deal.
Yeah. I think the only thing that makes me keep Hall down even a little bit is maybe his long speed isn't crazy, and he doesn't break off like a bunch of super long runs because of it, or sometimes he'll get caught. But he is one of the strongest, most physical backs in the NFL, working behind an offensive line that's not that great on an offense that was like just totally and completely limited. It's honestly amazing that his efficiency wasn't terrible. And that's a testament to, again, like his contact balance, his strength, and his ability to read things out and find small gaps. And on top of that, he's a very solid threat in the receiving game. I think if the Jets offense looks even a little bit more like, a real offense, he could have a humongous year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think
if they have a real quarterback to have a passing
he's the GOAT
attack,
to me, because of how much money I made betting on his receiving overs and just hoping he catches a screen and takes it 50 yards, which happened like pretty frequently last year, to be completely honest. He seemed to always kind of be good. Like, they couldn't run the ball behind the offensive line at all. So they were like, what are some ways that we can get him the ball in space? And they threw him a bunch of screens, and yeah, once he was in that space, it ended up being good. I'm actually looking at his screen yardage right now. That cannot be right. They said that he had 35 yards on screens. Did he take that many L's? Because I know that he had like some gigantic screens that he ran last year. I just scrolled down to the very bottom as I was talking about that. And he didn't get many yards on screens.
Well,
but
it might depend on how they're classifying screens, as opposed to like, because I think
to
for
like
it to
check.
be a screen,
Maybe I'm
it
just
has to
thinking
be-
of like
it has to be
check
caught
downs that he
behind the
took.
line of scrimmage, I think, to be considered a screen.
Yeah, that cannot be right. He caught way more just like little underneath passes. Maybe I'm thinking of a check down that he took and it wasn't a screen. But at any rate, like they
Yeah.
were found a ways to get him involved as a receiver. I know on PFF he's at the top in yards per route run in terms of running backs for 2 straight years now. So he's a good enough receiver that I think you want to bring a safety down and have a DB guard him, and it kind of affects how much you can play too high. When you get kind of these receiving backs, McCaffrey, same way, schematically, that's his big advantage. And Breece is that kind of receiver as well. Like you got to keep an eye on him at all times, and his vision is fantastic, contact balance fantastic. And I had him a little bit lower than this. I had Gibbs and I think Bijan ahead of him. I think they're slightly more electric, but
There's another guy you had ahead of him. Ken Walker.
I had my boy K9, but I think they're all kind of in a tier together, so I'm not really that mad about that.
Yeah, I mean, I only had one other guy between Saquon and Hall, and that was Jonathan Taylor.
You love these injury-prone dudes.
They're just good, man. They're just good at football when they're healthy.
Yeah.
You can't deny.
No, I can't deny, but...
But you're right. I guess I do love injury-prone dudes.
Although Hall had an injury himself.
You're right.
Yeah.
Hall has also been banged up.
And McCaffrey hasn't been the pinnacle of health in his career either.
You know, funny enough, Breece Hall had, I think, the longest rush of the season, possibly, for all running backs. So,
did he?
What the hell do I know? I swear to God,
did.
there's been a few times where he's gotten caught.
I don't think he has great,
he doesn't
most insane long speed ever, but he has like very good decisiveness where like those creases open up and he just hits it. I feel like even on that longest run of the season, it could have been longer. Was this against the Bills, like 84-yarder? Like he got caught eventually, and it's like I thought like Gibbs would probably take that all the way to the house, but I guess he has like the best long speed of anybody. Like Breece's long speed is still
Chubb
probably
would have taken that
average.
to the house, you know.
Chubb probably would have, but he was rehabbing his horrific injury.
He would have taken it to the house while hurt because he's just like that, man.
But I'm okay with Breece getting respect. I think that he really, really burst onto the scene and was on such a great run in his rookie year, and then he did kind of pick up where he left off. So I'm down. He's in a horrible situation too.
Yeah. Our next guy up is Bijan Robinson at number 4. Matt, you're kind of carrying this one a little bit. I think both Theo and I had Gibbs above Bijan, just slightly, but you had them pretty separated by a decent amount.
And maybe I shouldn't have again. I was kind of fiddling with my rankings until the end, but
it's tough.
Bijan very clearly, like, if he came out and was the best running back in the NFL next year, wouldn't be shocked. Just wouldn't be at all. He's just got juice in a way that I don't think anybody else in the NFL does right now. Point blank, period. His ability to slip guys is unreal and stay forward, which was always the thing about him at Texas, right? Mm-hmm. How he could juke and keep his momentum going forward. But on top of that, like, he's incredibly strong. He's incredibly quick. He's incredibly fast. He's got the long speed. So his top, like, especially from like not only when he's trying to run, you know, up the middle or through small gaps, but even when you get him out in open space and it's one-on-one, I feel like he's just as nasty as like a Gibbs, who we think about those like one-on-one sort of outside situations with him, maybe a little bit more. And that's not to take away from Gibbs, who is great. But I think Bijan is kind of just as good at that stuff, man. It's unreal. The efficiency wasn't crazy this year, but to be fair, like Tyler Algier, who got a bunch of carries, was really bad in a way that Bijan wasn't. And overall, I think Atlanta just had a weird season. If they decide to give him 300 carries, which they should, it could get crazy really quickly. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, he is the best cutter in the NFL. I think he just, like you said, he can slip people in a way that nobody else can. His phantom cam video against the Packers or whatever it was, from that shot from like directly above him still haunts me to this day. The move he put on Darnell Savage, and He can make amazing catches, and he reminds me a little bit of Marshawn Lynch, to be completely honest with you. His sliders are a little bit different. Like Lynch had the physicality turned up all the way, but man, their size and their build is a little similar. And Lynch had that kind of footwork as well. He just really would lower the shoulder, and I feel like the lateral cutting and ability of Bijan is what kind of makes him stand out a little bit more. But man, just the footwork, the tackle breaking ability, the vision, the receiving game. I mean, he's a complete back, and I completely agree with you, Matt, that I had him even a bit above Hall. I think that he's just has a bit more juice. Even
I
than
almost
him.
put him at 2.
It's not.
And again, like it really would not stun me if after this year, there's a large group of people who think he is the best running back in the NFL. I can't in good faith put him over like Christian McCaffrey right now. Anybody else, dude, he is ridiculous, man. He is unbelievable.
It felt like he got off to that kind of start last year where like by week 6, I was thinking like this guy is going to be all pro this year. And then it maybe kind of trailed off a bit. Maybe I just stopped paying attention to the Falcons eventually. But yeah, I agree. Like there were points last year where I was like, man, he has arrived as an elite player in the league already. So.
Oh, can I completely derail things for 1 second?
Sure.
Of course.
While researching for this and just kind of like looking at some of the numbers for a second, Rachaad White had 370 touches last year. I had absolutely no clue they gave him the ball that many times.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, I knew they gave him the ball a lot. I knew that he was like the guy. But doesn't that made him like one of the most used running backs in the entire NFL?
What was his yards per touch, Matt?
Probably not great, I'm going to guess. In his defense, Tampa Bay was not a strong running team for reasons outside of his control.
Yeah, he got better. He showed a lot of improvement, I think, as a visionary, and eventually like really did become dangerous out of the backfield. But man, yeah, he had so much volume over like being better than Bijan or something like that in terms of these rankings. Yeah, I think it's fair to rank Bijan incredibly highly. He's special. Who's up next?
Well, right behind him is Jahmyr Gibbs, who, Theo, you and I both had him slightly above Bijan, and I'm guessing we did it for very similar reasons. The speed. I mean, is anyone better at burning angles than him other than like Tyreek Hill? I
don't
can't
think so.
I can't think of anyone. Like there's a play against Baltimore where, I mean, he's burning angles from Kyle Hamilton, who is probably the best at tackling angles in the league. So yeah, and he's got really good contact balance for a guy his size. You know, there's a lot of plays where he just kind of runs into defenders and bounces off of them. I don't know if it's because he's moving so fast that they just like can't wrap up. But yeah, I mean, he was really special last year. And yeah, I think it helps that he had a great offensive line. I don't think that could be discounted. But I mean, I think he was very, very good.
Yeah, he improved a lot in pass pro as the year went on as well, which was important for him. But man, he had a juke versus Minnesota that is one of the best moves that I've ever seen in my life. Though I can't remember who he put it on, but if you Google any just Jahmyr Gibbs Vikings, you'll see it. And he combines all the tackle breaking ability as anybody else, combined with the fact that I think that he's the fastest running back in the league right now. Mm-hmm. And I thought by the end, he just, like, you could tell early. I remember after week 1, we were like, okay, Monty got used more than Gibbs, but you can tell Gibbs has the juice, and you can tell that this guy is special when he touches the ball. And then, yes, over the course of the year, they started ramping up his workload more and more. And then by the end, it felt like he was pretty unstoppable. And he has a lot better of a situation, which is why his numbers were better than Bijan and all them, and really anybody else in the league, because Gibbs was about as efficient as anyone not named McCaffrey. But and that's kind of why I put him at number 3. Is like I think a lot of these guys are in a tier altogether, and Gibbs was the best in the stats that I was looking at, combined with being just overall the fastest and having the most home run ability, which I think will really help him out here in the next couple of years.
I think that's totally valid. I can't disagree with it. I do think that maybe A-Chain is up there with him speed-wise.
Yeah. I will say
duh.
Matt is. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. Matt is the only one of us to have A-Chain on his list.
Wow. The Dolphins tax is ridiculous. He's a beast, man.
He is cool. My only thing is like
I'm closing my eyes. I'm saying he didn't break that tackle. That wasn't him. Or no, dude, he's ridiculous.
I don't know. I thought about it because I was watching just how efficient they all were, and I'm just like, oh.
He only had 100 carries is my thing, where like,
well, he did get hurt.
Yeah, well, he got hurt like over and over and over again, and like he didn't start any game. I mean, 8 yards a carry. What do you even do with that? Like, do you put him number 1 because that's
he's too good. They say it doesn't count. It doesn't count. He's too good. He's getting too many yards.
He had 8 yards per attempt. His breakaway rate was 53%.
Also. Yeah, and he's really good, man. Like he is.
His
really,
yards
really
after
good.
Contact per attempt was 4.9.
Come on, man. We can't even give him a little love. And look, I discounted. I said he's seen the ball, 120, 130 times in his career. Okay, we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves. Obviously, that guy has the juice. Obviously, that guy's elite.
He is. Did you consider ranking Mostert at all?
No,
because Mostert is similar in terms of like their.
We do not care.
I feel like, and
and I would say Mostert probably.
And that's why there
vision.
Is Dolphins tax, and I feel like Mostert was more productive than A-Chain last year. Obviously, he didn't have the insane numbers that A-Chain did. But the thing is, like Mostert has always had these numbers. Like Mostert's just kind of. It's not like Mostert came out of nowhere to do this.
Here's maybe I should have ranked Mostert because here's what I might suggest. What if the Dolphins are just really good at picking running backs? Like, oh, dude, no, it's their system. Okay, well, if there's some system that they can create that gives them the most efficient running backs, and McDaniel's like, he wants this certain type of running back and thinks it's really important to have, maybe those guys are just really good. I'm thinking possibly.
It's certainly possible that those guys are the best, but the thing is, like, we just seen it so few, like on so few carries from A-Chain. It's like I had guys who are not nearly as electric as A-Chain, but it's like I can hand the ball off to them and trust that they're not going to get banged up, and they've proved it.
I would have put Mostert above A-Chain. I think
because he had that Tua bailout catch. That shit was awesome.
That should have been one.
That's like among like in terms of plays that like don't really matter to me personally. That's among my all-time favorite plays. I really think it might be number 1 in terms of plays that like I'm like it's just like
Raheem Mostert.
Because you watch that and you think like, do you have any idea how mad that would make you if that happened to you on Madden? That's what I think about every time. Like I would lose my shit if the CPU did that against me. But it happened in real life.
This is how you know that Madden's realistic, is because it did happen.
There is some truth to that, honestly. Where it's like, yeah, unrealistic things kind of do happen sometimes.
Well, let's keep moving down the list here, because we've gone off on this whole aside about A-Chain, who's not even on here. In the honorable mention section, if we have time, we can circle back to it.
Yes.
I don't have A-Chain.
When it comes to your feet, eBay's got your back, because with eBay's authenticity guarantee, real experts are checking your sneakers, every stitch down to the sole. Me personally, I'm a big fan of a classic Air Force, or maybe a nice suede or leather boot, but whatever it is that you're adding to the lineup next, head to eBay. From the drop to your doorstep, eBay does not play with your sneaker game. Just look for that blue check mark. So ensure your next purchase is the real deal. Visit ebay.com for terms. Up next, so we just talked about Jahmyr Gibbs. Up next is Jonathan Taylor. So, I wasn't so far off. It's my place.
You weren't. I put him.
I think I had him at like 6 or 7.
I don't know if you had him at all, Theo. Did you?
Yeah, he's just been banged up these last 2 years, and I think I was looking at guys like Jalen Warren, and who I thought had a really underrated season last year, and guys like James Cook, who were healthy last year and were doing really well in the all-purpose yardage and had plenty of traits that were special. And then with Taylor, I don't know, like he was definitely that guy, like top tier, and in 2021, right? Or was it 2021? And these past 2 years, he's still been like really, really good, but he hasn't been quite as spectacular. And he just hasn't been on the field that much. So I don't hate it, but there's some dudes where, especially in kind of a short-term position like running back, where it's like, what have you done for me lately? So that's why I kind of avoided the injury dudes, the injury squad of Chubb and Taylor. But like you said, Blaiden, a lot of these guys have been hurt and banged up. Like Hall has been hurt and banged up, recently as well. But I didn't have him. But I'm not horrible at it, and I'll let you guys justify it. Or fight, I should say.
I mean, I think it's different from Chubb because Chubb is like coming off like a major injury at an older age, whereas Taylor has just been like kind of in and out, and he's with the holdout stuff. If this was 2021, we'd probably have him at like 2 or 3. So I think already where he's being positioned is kind of discounted. That's sort of my take on it.
Yeah, I still really appreciate how little fat there is when he runs on anything. Like he's just so north and south and just picks up what's available. He's always going very fast when he hits the line of scrimmage, I feel like. Although maybe this year it's not quite as blatant as it was in 2021 when he was just always flying downhill. It hasn't quite stayed that fast, but still, I don't know. I didn't have him that high.
I don't know. I just feel like when he's healthy, the Colts really lean on him to an insane degree. And especially, I mean, given they had Minshew running things at quarterback, this year. So I don't know. I think it speaks volumes that they're like so reliant on him for offensive production at times.
He did have 700 yards last year in like 7 games.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I think it was 10 games.
So if he played 17 games, he'd have 1,700 yards, which would be.
I think it was 10 games. So like not saying. That.
Oh.
So it would have only been like 1,200 yards, but still, that's a pretty good season.
These last
still.
2 years per 17 games, he's at 1,536 scrimmage yards.
Jesus.
So that's pretty damn good. It's just that he's been banged up and the efficiency numbers have kind of taken a hit. But I mean, he's been very productive when he's in games, and I love his style. But
you can't deny that he is good when he's in. But
no, I can't.
Yeah, I get the injury stuff. It's definitely worth considering.
I feel like we're past most of the big names now. Now I'm thinking it's going to start getting into woke takes, and
there's one. Well, part of this is my fault. That Chubb is going to end up on the list.
All right.
Honestly, I'm not even mad at that.
He's not next though. But next is Derrick Henry.
Okay.
Next is Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, yeah.
So that was the other big name that we haven't talked about yet. And I think it's fair to discount him a little bit because he's lost a step as far as like he's not quite as bursty
he's still
and
really
shifty as he used to be.
That's not going to go anywhere, I don't think. But like there will come a time when it's just he's too big and too slow to effectively do what he wants to do. He was not super efficient last year. However, he honestly was not as inefficient as one might expect,
Given how bad
considering
the
the
line
situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to gauge exactly like how much the slowing down is hurting him versus like how much his strength will make up for it. He's going to a much better situation now. And I think he's going to be a huge problem to deal with where you've got to worry about Lamar's speed and Henry's strength at the same time. And that's just pulling you two very different directions as a defense.
Yeah.
So I still rank him pretty highly, but we also have to admit, like, he's 30 and he has carried the ball a ton. He is in like mega outlier territory now.
Yes.
Yeah, he's essentially the Tom Brady of running backs. Obviously, he hasn't played that amount of time, but the extent to which he's carried the ball and continued to be effective has gotten into the point where it's like, dude, how long can you keep this up? It's gotten insane. I actually disagree with the speed and strength thing. I think it's a little bit more flipped than people think. I think Henry, in his age, has lost a bit of the contact balance that made him special. But when he gets to the open field, I think he still moves very well for his size. I mean, I'm looking at it now on the next gen stats, like player tracking stuff. They've got speed. Mm-hmm. He had one of the highest top speeds of the year last year. He was number 5 behind A-Chain, Mostert, Walker, and Hall. He still has a bit of giddy up in his
top speed. That might be true, but I think his overall burst certainly.
Yes, I agree with that.
I think that's
but still, relevant. Just the fact that he can get up to that level, I think he's not out of gas at this point. It's gotten worse in some areas, and he's so big that contact balance is very important because he's not going to like squeeze through a tiny gap and like not get bumped around a little bit. Like he'll squeeze through a tiny gap. He's going to get hit by somebody. And usually he could just run through those. I don't think he's quite as good at that anymore. But, man, when he gets it in the open field, he's still a big problem because of how big he is. And they still leaned on him. And like you said, Matt, he had every excuse to be as inefficient as Saquon, really.
Yeah, exactly. And he wasn't.
I think Saquon's situation was like even worse when I watch it on tape, even though it doesn't make sense. Like, how can you be worse than the Titans in terms of
their
blocking?
Was a disaster.
Kind of a fair way to, maybe not a fair way to look at it, but something to bring up is like Tajee Spears had like pretty solid efficiency and got some work done, whereas like everybody else who tried to genuinely run the ball for the Giants, who wasn't like a quarterback scrambling, would have come out to be like the worst rushing offense since like the 1940s or whatever. Like that's the level of bad it was at if it was just those dudes. So it like on paper, I agree. It might seem like, well, it really can't be that much worse, but it was. It was.
Yeah, somehow. But Henry's situation still sucked, and he was good. So yeah, he's not washed.
He was top 10. He was top 10 in yards after contact per attempt, and top 5 in missed tackles forced last year.
Yeah, he is not washed at all. I think the Ravens got a really good back. I'm glad he's still here in the top 10. It's gotten to the point where it's like, okay, I think Gibbs, Bijan, maybe Lightning McQueen falling behind slightly, but it's really not by much. It's really, really not by much. So Henry, I think still has a lot of juice. It's just, one of these years, eventually it's going to stop. And when you're buying the other guys, you're buying the security where it's like, that's not just like right around the corner with them. But
yeah,
Henry was great last year, I thought, or at least very, very good.
He was good. Next up is Nick Chubb at number 8.
That's fine.
So
it balances out where like you get Blaiden, who thinks he's going to come back and have his career year, I guess, and win MVP finally. And then us who saw the injury and see his age and thought it was so bad that like he's a complete unknown. And maybe ignored him when we shouldn't have, because if anyone can come back, it's him. So it all balances out at like 8. And that's the beauty of the consensus rankings, where I can't be mad at 8, right? Because it's like, okay, I see both arguments.
He's still the best, man. Like when he was playing last year, he was
still
great.
The best, bro. He's hobbling right now. He's on crutches in a boot, thinking, do I still have it? And Blaiden's like, oh, he's out here better than McCaffrey, 100% guaranteed.
way you're talking, I'm thinking J.K. Dobbins is going to be number 9.
None of us put Dobbins on here.
That's gonna change.
Is it?
Him and Herbert.
Him and Herbert, the not his fault team.
JK's gonna have another 1,000 season.
Are there any other stay hot running back guys?
Aaron Jones.
He is not on here.
You didn't put him.
You didn't put. Yeah, I was supposed to say you didn't.
I thought about it. If I had gone like 15 or 16 or 17 deep, he would have been there. Like, he's still a very good back.
I should have put him on there because I'm looking at his stats now, and yes, he's not necessarily like standing out in a super major way compared to the guys on this list, but he was so much better than AJ Dillon last year, who's like literally at the bottom of all this. It's like maybe he was the GOAT last year.
Well, he kind of went on like a little insanity run at the end of the season that just doesn't count.
He's another one of those banged up guys, and it's like I mean, no one needs to. Everybody knows that I love Aaron Jones, and I think he's absolutely insanely good. But he was a bit banged up last year, and it's like I watched Jaylen Warren, and he kind of looked like the new Aaron Jones. You know what I mean? Like he was so efficient. He had the nasty vision with the stiff arm and physicality. It's like, oh man, I love Aaron Jones, but I can't deny that there may be some dudes starting to creep up on him a little bit. He's not maybe in his prime, but he was in the playoff run. So, but anyway, we got to get through the list. Yeah, we're talking about guys who are honorable mentions. Not even
not even honorable mentions, just like stay hot legends. So Nick Chubb was 8.
Sorry, that was a bad one.
Nick Chubb was 8, just basically by my own fruition. At number 9 was Kyren Williams. I did not realize how productive and efficient he was last year.
Yeah, he was super productive, super efficient. I think he's really quick. He always seems to twist himself forward in a way. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I don't think that I think there's a lot of guys who would have done good on that Rams team, to be completely honest with you. Like you were talking, maybe you put Jaylen Warren there. Like I think that would have been pretty strong, or any of the other guys who lived there. Some, like if Aaron Jones was there, I'm sure he would have had a big year. But I think Williams deserves a lot of credit for what he was able to do.
I mean, he led the league in yards per game.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. I mean, there's not much more you can do. He had some big fumbles in a game last year that cost them. But outside of that, I was really impressed with how north and south he was. I thought he did a beautiful job maximizing each and every opportunity that he got. Just really no wasted movement from him at all. And that's how you survive. Like he's quicker than he is fast. He didn't run a very good 40 at all, and everyone kind of wrote him off after that. He ran like a 4.7 or something ridiculously bad. Kind of reminds me of another Notre Dame running back who's very good and getting written off because of a combine and falling in the draft. But at any rate, Kyren really is like the fully realized version of what I hope Estime is. It's just like he's a bruiser. He gets downhill, and in McVay's scheme, he was absolutely money. I gave him an honorable mention though. I didn't put him top 10.
I think I had him at like 8 or 9.
I had him at 10, so
okay,
it balanced out.
Maybe I had him like 7. Who remembers?
You did have him at 7. Hey, you had him above Achane.
Shout out to him. I discounted. It's not like I was like, oh my God, he averaged 7 yards a carry. He's the best running back in the NFL, and I put him at 1. Achane is good, man. He's a good player.
He is good. I like Kyren. He was, what is it? 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns in 13 games. 5 yards per attempt. Nasty work.
That is crazy.
That is insane.
Who's next?
Number 9, we have, or that was number 9. Number 10, the last guy on the list is James Cook.
I'm glad he got a spot here. He had an underrated season, I think. He was a bit frustrating in terms of the drops that he had. He had some that were absolutely killer for the Bills, but he also did a lot as a receiver. Like he ranked pretty highly in yards per route run for a running back. So they did try to get him involved. And at the end of the day, he did have almost a 60% success rate receiving the ball, 44 receptions for 445 yards. Like that's not nothing. So you can say that he's kind of that dual threat. And on the ground, I thought that he kind of emulated his brother a little bit in terms of being the footwork god and finding ways to pick through small spaces. He didn't really have the craziest home run ability where he was breaking off like super long ones left and right. Like he's a little small and slight. It feels like it doesn't have like, he's not bulky and explosive and can just like run through the entire team like Breece Hall can or some of these other dudes. But I'm just realizing K9 is not in the top 10, and I'm gonna kill both of you. Actually, is what I'm realizing. But
we can have a discussion about that here in a second after the Cook stuff.
Yeah,
that realization just hit me in my face. Just fell, and the world around me became black and white, and I got in a bad mood. But
brother,
I'm glad that Cook made it.
I agree with you. He definitely is a maximize, like the meat on the bone type guy, at least for the short stuff. I think as long was like a 40-yarder though. Like there's definitely a limit on the big plays. As far as Ken Walker goes,
he was the first guy out. I'll give you that.
Yeah, because of me. I put him at 5.
Yeah, that is
no way, man. No way. He has got all the talent in the world. And I think we've mostly been very high on him for years now. But like he dances way too much, man. It is too much even for a guy as good as he is. And I just think it's part of what makes him less efficient. And I know the Seahawks like run, it's not that great. Like I get it. But I still think there's a lot of plays where he'll get the ball and he'll spend way too long trying to get into his stuff.
He does spend a long time. I almost think of him as like the Dak of running backs, where he's trying to be extremely aggressive. Like the reads that he's attempting to pull off are almost too much sometimes, but he's not dancing in a DeAndre Swift way where it's like he just doesn't want to press things, that he just wants to get out and run on the perimeter as quickly as he can, and he's leaving opportunities on the table left and right. I think that Walker's vision is different than that. I think that he is more north-south than people realize. I think he does things that he does out of necessity, and really when I watched the Seahawks and how banged up their line was, it's like I kind of think his situation was pretty bad. Like again, we talk about Henry and we talk about Saquon, like maybe not quite that bad, but Shane Waldron was really MacGyvering a rushing offense with some of the weirdest motions you'll see and formations, and just trying to do whatever he can to alleviate how poor the offensive line was, and the fact that they couldn't really get downhill and move anybody. And I think Walker really helped him out with his stuttering and with his setups. I think, yes, his rush paths occasionally look like he's going all the way to one sideline and then all the way to the other, and they end up losing 5 yards. And it's like, you probably could have just gone straight ahead, dude. But I really think, I mean, the more I watched him, the more I thought there was a method to his madness. And when I looked at the Seahawks rushing attack, I thought it was going to be like in like the bottom 5 or bottom 7, but I think Walker kind of had a bit of a carry job, to be completely honest with you, in keeping them in kind of the mid-level rushing attacks.
I think
but that's just the way I see it.
More efficient than him is interesting, and I think the fact that they went running back after they went Walker is often viewed as like stupid Pete Carroll. I think he did that, and like it was dumb to go with another running back in the second round. I think he did that because he's like, I really need a compliment to Walker. That's how I look at that, to be completely honest with you. I think that Walker is too dancy, and it hurts how efficient of a runner he is. And here's the thing: any given year, it could be like, okay, well, he reins it back like the perfect amount, and the Seattle's offensive line gets better, and he goes crazy. Like I'm totally down for that to be the case anytime, any year. I'm not doubting his ability. And it's not like super far off, or it's not like one of these dudes where it's like they're like that, but they just have no juice, so it's just awful instantly. But he just misses the mark for me personally.
I gotta disagree. I think he is doing what he has to. That's my interpretation. But we don't have the film in front of us, so we can't go band
Ken
for
Walker
band
film review.
But I'd be down.
Yeah.
I'd be down. I think
he
has his bad moments, but I think
he's
mostly really good. But
Seahawks versus any other team, and we'll see who has the better running performance. But Ken Walker was the first guy out. Some other honorable mentions. I will just go down the list of like who scored next. James Conner was the next guy up after.
That's a Theo vote.
Walker.
I voted for him. I think I put.
Oh, maybe I didn't put Conner in mine. I thought I did.
Conner had an incredible season. I think he's one of the more underrated guys. And again, like, is A-Chain more explosive than him? Definitely. Yeah. But man, Conner was just the workhorse in Arizona, written off by Pittsburgh. He goes behind an offensive line that's young and still developing, and I think helps him out a lot. Like they really fed him the rock, and he paid it off. Like his efficiency was actually great last year. Like early downs, hand on the ball, and he was as good as anybody in like those situations, keeping the Cardinals on schedule and their offense competent the entire year. And if it wasn't for him, I don't know where they would be, to be completely honest with you. Like DeMarcado would have been a big downgrade to me. I think Conner did it was an underrated carry job from him, to be completely honest with you. And yes, he doesn't have the insane like stuff that A-Chain does, but that's kind of what I was rewarding in this, kind of the same thing. I had Montgomery in my honorable mentions as well, and Kyren's sort of the same deal. It's like they were just grinders, they were consistent, and then A-Chain, like holy shit, he had 8 yards in attempts for a fraction of the attempts, but holy shit, I didn't. It's just not what I prioritized in this particular ranking.
You hate him.
He does. That's Theo called me this morning. He was like, I want you to know that I hate Devon A-Chain.
Like all the Dolphins fans can't get mad at me because I put Waddle at 6 last episode. So you know.
Yeah, you were like,
Waddle,
they have 2 top 5 wide receivers.
Does that balance it out with
not putting
it out with
I think it does. I think it does.
But you would.
What other agenda can I push? Dolphins fans have gotten chiller after the playoff L and the division getting lost on 2 bad picks to us. So I think I can rank Tua safely, and I think Tuanon is dormant, at least for now.
I think sometimes, like when a team first breaks on the scene, like it takes that first big time loss to sort of have the fan base take a step back. That's true for every fan base, not to hate on the Dolphins. Things would have gotten incredibly violent with the Timberwolves if they had just like swept the Nuggets.
Oh yeah. You got to get humbled, and that's why the worst fan bases are always the guys with quarterbacks on a rookie deal, because it's just also new. It's also new for them, and even if the quarterback is doing bad, it's someone else's fault. And if they're doing good, they're just perfect, right? They haven't been let down at all. It's just like everything is awesome when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal and you can defend him, and it seems like consistent. But then take a few heartbreaking playoff L's, and then you get a little bit more grizzled, I feel like.
Yeah.
Who else got some votes?
Yeah, some other guys that were mentioned. So we talked about Walker, Conner, A-Chan, Jaylen Warren is a guy we've brought up a little bit. But yeah, I thought when he was in for Pittsburgh, I know they kind of went with that duo of him and Najee. Bro, there was a lot of times in the season where I felt like Warren was just going to take the job away.
I think they're kind of fighting that. And Najee was better this year in some aspects, but Warren is all things
he's
equal.
The new Aaron Jones, man.
Yeah,
That's really what it feels like to me. It's like he's little. Maybe he's better, like always in a committee because he's a bit smaller. Like he's not built like AP or Nick Chubb or anything like that. So you probably want to keep him and Najee together as that 1-2 punch. And
well, they didn't
maybe
pick
that
up
means
Najee's
Warren,
5th year.
Yeah, that's true. But they'll still be together this year, and they were together the last few. So I think Warren has a lot of juice on film and efficiency wise. He's kind of at that top right hand corner, but he's not held in the same regard. I put him at number 10.
Yeah.
So I had him top 10, but he's not a workhorse I didn't have Jonathan Taylor on the list though. So
so we all of a sudden stopped caring about the workload stuff. Mind you, he had like 9 more yards than HN. It's all good though.
I mean,
no, it's all good though.
Yeah, this is crazy. Actually,
there's more to it than that. Like HN's on the Dolphins, and you've only seen him have 100 carries like ever.
Yeah. Warren's workload at this point is like double what HN has.
But his production is like equal.
Sort of.
No.
Another guy was David Montgomery.
Yeah, he's really, really strong.
Good blocker. We haven't talked enough about pass pro on this
at all.
On this, I think all of these guys are like somewhat like there's no liabilities here that I can think of. Maybe I'm totally missing somebody. K9's not the best. Maybe I should have dinged him more for that, honestly. Because on top of all the other things you could maybe ding him for. But Montgomery, I love the bodyguard mentality that he brings as a blocker and breaks a lot of tackles and was not too far off from what Gibbs did this year. And Gibbs ranked very highly. So
yeah, I mean, they had a great rushing attack in Detroit this year. So, I mean, you got to give a lot of credit to the offensive line and to the stuff that Ben Johnson does. But obviously they have good backs too, because they've had Swift before and Swift wasn't.
Yeah, and how much did the Bears miss him? I think Montgomery, they could have won another game at least if they had his pass protection, because I feel like the primary problem that the Bears offense had this year more than anything was like none of their backs could like pick up any kind of protection, and it kind of derailed a lot of games for them, I felt like. And if you just put Montgomery back there, it definitely would have looked a lot better. So you can't discount that aspect of it. And he's a strong runner. I thought he was a bit underrated when he left Chicago. This past year in Detroit just kind of reaffirmed that. But
yeah, no, I can't disagree. The last guy that was on here, and I'm happy that he got some respect, is the only guy that runs like he hates the ground, Isaiah Pacheco.
He hates I put him as my last honorable mention.
So did I, Matt. So did I.
He takes on a big workload, and I think he's pretty tough. I think he's worth, he's a good back.
Yeah, I thought about him. I always saw him in honorable mention range. Whenever I looked at the stats, it's like, okay, here's some of my guys. And then like just below them is Pacheco. And he's like, maybe he should be an honorable mention, because he really does keep like showing up in a lot of these running back stats that I value. And he was great for Kansas City. He was
and he took on a huge workload. He did, and he did that all while taking. I mean, he probably had 300 touches, maybe more.
K9 clears him badly, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Let me push some agendas here. K9 will thrive someday, but
someday, not today though. But yeah, those are all the running backs that we mentioned.
No Maybe Jerome go through Ford. The list 1 through 10 in total to cap it off.
I'll say no Jerome Ford, no Miles Sanders,
We've been avoiding the honest Jerome Ford conversation, and we will continue to today.
But the full consensus 1 through 10: Christian McCaffrey number 1, Saquon Barkley number 2, Breece Hall number 3, Bijan Robinson number 4, Jahmyr Gibbs number 5, Jonathan Taylor number 6, Derrick Henry number 7, Nick Chubb number 8, Kyren Williams number 9, and James Cook number 10.
Sure. I don't agree with the order, and I think K9 should be there. Now that I listened to it all laid out, it's like I think some of the orders should be switched, but I none of those names are like undeserving. I don't think none of you guys like put Swift up there, so we're all good.
Yeah, I mean we're not like that, man. Yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly love the order either. I think Chubb should be a little bit higher. I think actually that's it.
Chubb should be higher. Warren shouldn't be on there at all.
I like Warren.
But all right, well,
yeah. If Warren can't be on there, Derrick Henry can't be on there either. So, to be fair.
All right.
To be fair, that wraps up another episode of Stay Hot, where all of our lives have been threatened at some point. But thank you all so much for tuning in, and make sure you stick around for next time. Actually, yeah, stick around for next time, and until next time, we will catch you on the flippity flop.